You're stepping over a line now. You're stepping over a line. You know you are. You want to know. Take responsibility for what you want to know. Just put your manners back in.
He's calm, collected, and always in control, but when someone crosses the line, Tom Cruise doesn't need to shout to make a point. Over the years, countless reporters have tried to corner him, push his buttons, or catch him off guard. Instead, they've learned the hard way that Cruise plays by his own rules. From red carpets to live TV, every exchange becomes a masterclass in composure and quiet power. These moments didn't make headlines for drama. They made history for precision. Because one thing's certain, you don't mess with Tom Cruise. The Ellen DeGeneres Show. No games, no nonsense. It started off like any other light-hearted talk show segment. Ellen DeGeneres doing what she does best, getting celebrities to play along with her quick, playful games. But when Tom Cruise sat down across from her, something shifted. Ellen smiled and tossed out a seemingly innocent question. Britney or Christina? A question that's harmless to most guests, except Tom doesn't do harmless. He froze, smiled politely and said, "I've never thought about it." And that was it. No laughter, no banter, no follow-up joke. Ellen tried to recover, stumbling through an awkward, "all right then," but the tone in the room had already changed, because that short response carried a message. Tom Cruise doesn't play trivial games. To him, every interview is a reflection of his work, his focus, and his professionalism. He's not there to gossip, flirt, or rank pop stars. He's there to talk about his craft. And what made it so powerful was that he wasn't rude. He wasn't dismissive. He just held his ground with calm precision, like a man who's learned exactly how to control the energy in any room he walks into. Ellen, who's used to teasing reactions, realized instantly this was not someone to joke around with. That moment, small as it was, set the tone for everything that came after. From daytime banter to red carpet chaos, Cruise proved one thing. He doesn't play for laughs, he plays for respect. The red carpet prank. Why would you do that? It was supposed to be a routine red carpet interview. Cameras flashing, fans screaming, press everywhere. Tom Cruise was in his element, smiling, shaking hands, giving thoughtful answers. Then, out of nowhere, a man disguised as a reporter aimed a fake microphone at him and sprayed water right in his face. For a split second, you could see the shock. Anyone else might have lost it, cursed, walked off, maybe even swung back. But not Tom. He didn't move. He didn't even raise his voice. He just stared at the man and calmly said, "Why would you do that?" He said it again and again. Each time quieter, steadier, more piercing. The prankster tried to laugh it off, but the laughter died fast, because Cruise wasn't joking. "Why would you do that? That's incredibly rude. I'm here giving you an interview, and you do something nasty like that." You could feel the power shift instantly. The crowd fell silent. The man looked like he wanted to disappear. Tom didn't humiliate him. He simply made him face the disrespect. And then, just when security tried to pull the guy away, Tom stopped them. "Don't run away! Don't run away!" That was it. Pure control. He turned an embarrassing prank into a life lesson about respect and composure. No anger, no retaliation, just authority. Because when Tom Cruise gets disrespected, he doesn't explode. He teaches you a lesson you'll never forget. The Matt Lauer clash. Facts over feelings. It was 2005. Tom Cruise on the Today Show with Matt Lauer. What started as a simple promo interview turned into one of the most talked-about TV moments of his career. Matt brought up Tom's public criticism of actress Brooke Shields for using antidepressants, expecting maybe a half-hearted backpedal. Instead, he got a verbal masterclass. Lauer questioned Cruise's stance, calling it unreasonable. Tom didn't raise his voice. He sharpened it. "Matt, you have to understand this. You don't know the history of psychiatry." "I do." That one line flipped the entire power dynamic. Lauer tried to keep it casual, even chuckling a bit, but Cruise was laser-focused. He wasn't angry, he was surgical. He broke down his points with precision, explaining how modern psychiatry, in his view, masks problems instead of addressing them. When Matt tried to pull it back to Brooke Shields' personal choice, Tom didn't budge. You see, here's the problem. You don't know the effects of these substances. You don't understand what they do to the mind. Lauer tried to smooth things over, but Tom had already dismantled the setup. No emotion, no shouting, just a steady rhythm of facts and conviction. By the end of the segment, it was clear. Matt was the one on the defensive. It wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about presence. Tom Cruise didn't win by overpowering. He won by outthinking. Peter Overton, You're Stepping Over a Line, Australia, 2005. Tom Cruise was promoting a film when journalist Peter Overton decided to go for the personal angle. What started as a friendly sit-down quickly took a turn. Overton leaned forward, voice casual but loaded. Was Nicole the love of your life? Tom blinked, almost surprised. What do you mean, Peter? He asked, giving him a chance to back out. But Overton pushed, mentioning the 10-year marriage, the kids, even asking if Tom wanted Nicole Kidman to remarry. That's when the tone changed. Tom's voice dropped. Calm, steady, but icy. You're stepping over a line now. You know you are. Those words hit harder than any outburst could. Overton tried to justify it, saying, well, these are questions people want to know. And Cruise cut him down with one sentence. Peter, you want to know. That was it. Silence. You could feel the tension in the room shift. Suddenly the interviewer looked small, caught in a moment he couldn't escape. Tom wasn't rude. He was controlled. He drew a boundary and made it crystal clear. His private life isn't up for grabs, and no one, no matter how polite the disguise, gets to cross that line. It was a perfect example of Cruise's quiet dominance. He didn't need to defend his personal life. He simply reminded everyone that some questions don't deserve answers. By the time the interview ended, Peter Overton wasn't leading the conversation anymore. Tom Cruise was. The Sophia Bella interview, Don't Pit Me Against My Friends. It started off fun and relaxed, a press junket for The Mummy. Tom Cruise sat beside co-star Sophia Bella, talking about stunts, choreography, and his on-screen chemistry with Russell Crowe. Everything was smooth until one reporter decided to stir the pot. They asked, Russell Crowe said you both agreed to go all out in your fight scene. But if it came down to a real fight, who would win? Instantly, Tom's expression shifted. The smile stayed, but the warmth vanished. He leaned forward slightly and asked, Why do you ask that question? The reporter tried to laugh it off, saying it was just for fun, but Tom didn't let it slide. Why do you think of stuff like that? He's my friend. That would never happen. You could feel the awkwardness fill the room. The other journalists froze. Cruise wasn't angry. He was simply setting a boundary in real time. It wasn't about the fight. It was about respect. The question wasn't meant to entertain. It was meant to create tension between friends, to turn professionalism into a headline. Tom wasn't having it. He took that awkward setup and flipped it into a moment of loyalty. He talked about how much he respected Russell as an actor, an athlete, and a collaborator. He reminded everyone that his relationships are built on trust, not competition. In one calm exchange, Tom shut down the drama, defended a friend, and showed exactly why no interviewer ever truly gets the upper hand. From protecting his friendships to protecting his identity, Cruise made it clear integrity isn't something he switches on and off. The mask question, still me every time. During another round of interviews for Mission Impossible, one reporter tried to catch Tom Cruise off guard with a strange, almost mocking question. They referenced the movie's famous use of masks, the disguise scenes that have become iconic, and asked, if you could wear a mask and live as a normal person, no one knowing you're Tom Cruise, what would you do? At first, it seemed like harmless curiosity, but underneath it was a dig, the implication that Tom's life isn't normal, that he's trapped behind fame and image. Most celebrities might laugh it off or give a vague answer. Tom didn't. He looked at the interviewer and said simply, I'd do the same thing I always do. Go make movies, travel the world, talk to people. No defensiveness, no irritation, just authenticity. Then he added, it's a privilege. It's been a dream of mine since I was a kid to do what I do. I never take it for granted. That's Tom Cruise in a nutshell. No mask, no pretense, just gratitude for the life he's built. He didn't entertain the idea that his fame was a burden. Instead, he reframed it as purpose. The reporter's attempt to humanize him by suggesting he'd want to escape his identity completely backfired. Because Tom doesn't need to hide from who he is, he embraces it. And that's what separates him from most stars. Where others might crave anonymity, Tom finds meaning in connection. Every handshake, every fan interaction, every country he visits, he's not running from the spotlight. He's using it to illuminate what he loves. In a few calm sentences, he turned what could have been a trap into a moment of grounded perspective, reminding everyone that authenticity is the best disguise of all. Jimmy Kimmel Live. Story over status. When Tom Cruise sits on Jimmy Kimmel Live, you know it's going to be entertaining. But what most people don't realize is that Cruise always keeps control, even in comedy. During one appearance, Jimmy decided to poke fun at Tom's fame, asking if he ever just wanted to walk down the street or ride the subway like a normal person. It was framed as a joke, but it carried a challenge. Can someone as famous as Tom Cruise still live a real life? Tom didn't get defensive. He smiled, leaned back, and said, "I do. I'm ready for whatever's going to happen." He explained that he doesn't change how he lives. He talks to people, he rides public transport, and he keeps things simple. Then, instead of trying to prove a point, he told a story. He described riding the tube in London, disguised under a baseball cap and headphones, just wanting to get to the stage. "Sometimes it works," he said. "One time this teenage girl just stared at me. Everyone was on their phones, and she's looking at me like she knows." Tom smiled as he recounted how she realized it was him, but said nothing, just shared the moment. That's how Cruise wins these exchanges, not through ego, but through storytelling. He turns skepticism into connection. He doesn't try to prove he's normal. He simply shows it through real experiences. Kimmel laughed, realizing the balance had shifted. What started as playful teasing had turned into a genuine moment of insight. Cruise wasn't proving humility. He was living it. He even added that fame never stopped him from enjoying people or places. "I make movies for the audience," he said. "That's why I love talking to them. It reminds me why I do what I do." In that instant, Tom flipped the tone completely. Kimmel began with a jab about celebrity life, but by the end, Tom had quietly reminded everyone that fame doesn't define him. Purpose does. The manners check. Put your manners back in. It happened during another press interview. The same journalist who once implied Tom Cruise wasn't fit for his Collateral role decided to test him again. The conversation started professional, but the interviewer's tone slowly shifted. He asked personal questions that had nothing to do with the film, trying to provoke a reaction. Tom didn't flinch. He gave calm, clipped responses, maintaining his trademark composure. But when the interviewer finally crossed the line, interrupting him mid-sentence and twisting his words, Tom leaned forward, looked him directly in the eye and said quietly, "Just put your manners back in." That's it. No shouting, no insult, just a short, cutting reminder that respect goes both ways. You could see the change instantly. The interviewer froze, then tried to recover, asking, "Do you think I was out of line?" Tom didn't hesitate. "Yes, absolutely." There was a pause, then an apology. "Well, I apologize for that sincerely." "Good," Tom said and leaned back. Conversation over. It was one of those moments that perfectly sums up Cruise's power in interviews. He doesn't need to embarrass anyone to assert control. He just reminds them, with calm authority, that boundaries exist. Afterward, that clip spread like wildfire. People weren't sharing it because of drama. They were sharing it because of how coolly he handled it. No anger, no ego, just precision. It became a masterclass in composure, the kind of response most people wish they could give when someone crosses a line. Even the interviewer later admitted he'd learned something that day. That confidence isn't about talking louder, it's about standing taller when it counts. That one sentence, "Put your manners back in," went viral, not because it was cruel, but because it was so measured. It wasn't about domination, it was about dignity. And that's what makes Tom Cruise untouchable. He never loses his temper, but he never lets anyone forget who's in charge. the reporter who tried to talk politics. During a Mission Impossible press junket, things were running smoothly. Journalists firing off questions about stunts, filming locations, and the grueling schedule Tom Cruise is known for. Then one reporter decided to switch gears, slipping in a question that had nothing to do with the movie. She brought up former President Donald Trump's tariffs on overseas productions, asking if the film had been affected and how much of it was shot abroad. It sounded casual, but everyone in the room knew what it was: a political trap disguised as curiosity. Tom didn't even blink. He let the question hang in the air for a moment, then said evenly, "I think that's a fair answer. All right, can we move on to the next question, please?" No frustration, no laughter, just a calm pause that said everything without saying a thing. The silence that followed was brutal. The reporter shifted awkwardly, realizing she wasn't going to get a soundbite or a headline out of him. Tom had shut it down completely, without debate, without defensiveness, and without stepping into the minefield. Then, with perfect timing, he brought the conversation back to the movie, praising the crew, the locations, and the incredible work that went into pulling off the impossible stunts. He didn't ignore the tension. He redirected it. By the time he was done speaking, the energy in the room was back where it belonged. On the craft, not the controversy. That's one of his greatest strengths. He knows exactly when not to engage. He's mastered the art of saying nothing and still walking away with all the power. While other celebrities might take the bait and start a debate that spirals into headlines, Cruise plays the long game. He protects the work, the team, and the brand, because that's what a professional does. Whether it's politics or provocation, Cruise never takes the bait. He just reminds everyone that real power speaks softly. The Collateral interview: confidence is quiet. During a press tour for Collateral, Tom Cruise sat down for what was supposed to be a straightforward conversation about his intense transformation into Vincent, the cold, silver-haired hitman. But one interviewer clearly had other plans. Right out of the gate, he said, "When I read about this movie, I thought, well, this is a typical role for Al Pacino or Robert De Niro. And then you took it. It wasn't even subtle. It was an insult disguised as an observation, the kind of comment meant to shake confidence or draw ego out of an actor." But Tom didn't bite. He smiled politely, nodded and said, "I don't get afraid to take on characters. I get excited. No defensiveness, no resentment, just quiet certainty." Then he added, "You never know if it's going to work, but that's the fun of it, jumping in and seeing what happens." That's the difference between insecurity and mastery. Cruise didn't need to defend why he took the role. His performance did that for him. But the interviewer wasn't done. He tried again, pressing on Tom's choices and implying he might not be suited for darker roles. This time, Tom leaned in slightly and said calmly, "Take responsibility for what you want to know. Don't say what other people think. Just put your manners back in." The man froze. That was it. The moment he realized he'd completely lost control of his own interview. And what made it more powerful was how Tom handled it afterward. He didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't make the guy look foolish. He just sat back, gave a small nod, and moved on as if nothing happened. The room stayed quiet for a few seconds, that heavy silence that only true authority creates. When the interview ended, even critics admitted it. Cruise didn't just act confident, he embodied it. No tantrums, no theatrics. Just composure that could cut through noise. Because when someone tries to question your place, the strongest response isn't anger, it's certainty. Tom Cruise doesn't dominate interviews with volume, he does it with control. He proves that confidence isn't about shouting louder, it's about knowing your worth, staying composed, and never letting anyone shake your ground. So the next time someone mistakes kindness for weakness, just remember, that smile, it's not surrender, it's a warning. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Cruise's most legendary moments, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment with your favorite Tom Cruise comeback. And don't miss our next video.